Welcome to this new how-to. In this how-to we're gonna look at how you can use the autopilot in a Diamond Aircraft DA62. Before taking off we're gonna activate the de-icing options, and reason is because I already tried to record this video but then I would say something happened and I think that you can imagine what has happened. So it will activate the icing lights, and also we're gonna activate the de-icing options, and that's just to avoid that the aircraft freezes. Also the autopilot heat will be switched on. So before taking off we're gonna set the altitude for the autopilot, and that can be done by using this wheel. And this wheel has multiple options. Let me zoom out a bit. So the first thing you can do, of course, is setting the thousands, which can be done using the large knob, and you've got the small one, which you can use to change the 100s. After that, you can, once we're airborne, we're going to activate the flight level change mode, which will bring us to the altitude which we set up here. Currently flight director is not on, so we switch it on. Autopilot we will leave it off for now. So we're gonna first take off from the aircraft airport, I should say. And hopefully I don't come into the icing again. So it's this piece. I'm gonna do the gears, and then it's time for first I would say autopilot function, and that's the flight level change mode. So we're gonna activate it, and once we activated the autopilot, and that can be seen on this screen, it will start to climb. So AP stands for autopilot, FLC stands for flight level change. It will keep us at a space of 101 knots and will climb to 2500 feet. And once we're there, we will, I would say, or it will level off like normally. The second one we're gonna use is the heading option, and the heading option you also need to use a knob, and that knob can be found here. So again, let me zoom out a bit to show you what it does, because what it does, you need to look at this blue piece. It will change that blue piece, so we're gonna change it to west because we want to fly west a bit. And once that's done, we press the heading option, which you can find here. So heading, you can see that the aircraft, let me show it, the aircraft will directly start to turn, which is good, and will let's say turn in the direction which we defined, which is this nice blue marker. That's of course nice, right? If you want to fly VFR, want to keep a specific direction, then this option is very useful. But there's also another option which is called nav, which is found here. And that one can be used in combination with the navigation system. And navigation system is currently set to GPS, it's en route, right, as you can see. So let's use the nearest option and then say, okay, we want to fly to BIRK. It's fine for us. That's the one we want to use. I'm going to say direct to, and we're going to say activate, and that will directly set up the say route to BIRK, as you can see. So if we would hit nav now, it would start moving into that direction. So let me do that. So we'll switch to nav mode, and you will see that the aircraft will start to turn. However, what I want to show you also is the approach mode, which is the next mode. Because the nav mode simply follows the navigation beacons. It will try to fly to that navigation beacon, and then will follow the would say follow the next one and next one, etc. until you hit the end, and then it will start to move in circles. So we're gonna select the approach. We're gonna select ILS 19. Well, let's do that for now. We can also use 13 if we want, but this one's okay. Oh. Enter, and then to activate it again I need to go to the bottom. And then I'm gonna say activate. As you can see, the flight plan is now being updated. Based on that, the autopilot will start making corrections. And it will start making that correction because if we would open the VFR map, hopefully it will load, yes, it will show us a different route which we need to take, right? So we now need to first fly to RK and then following this path and then into the runway. I'm aware we didn't ask for permission to land, but we're simply asked, we will simply do that. Let's do that in the meantime. We're gonna request full stop.
Reykjavik Tower Diamond Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra to land.
Diamond Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Reykjavik Tower.
Okay, interesting, runway 13. So let's then make a small correction.
Diamond X-ray Golf Sierra cleared to land runway 13. Wind 106 at 10.
So we're gonna use the localizer. So we're gonna acknowledge it.
Clear to land runway 13 Diamond X-ray Golf Sierra.
And then we're gonna use this one and then say activate again. So we're gonna again change the navigation. So what will happen? We would look at the aircraft. It will start moving again, right? So you can see how easy it is to, let's say, move from one point to the other one by using the navigation option. Now there are a few buttons which we didn't discuss. The first one is the nose up and down and the VS mode. The vertical speed mode can be used to either increase or decrease the altitude. So for example, if we would, oh, it's a little bit too low. Come on. Let's say to 2000 feet. We can press VS and then you can see that a new blue marker comes in here and also the text is being updated. And if we would now say, okay, hey, let's set it to 500, we're gonna decrease with 500 feet per minute. As soon as it hits the 2000 will start to blink again and it will level off to the 2000 feet. So that's one of the options, right? So let's decrease speed a bit. In addition to that, you've got the VNV mode, and the VNV mode can be used for flight plans which have altitudes, then will follow those altitudes. I don't use them much, to be honest. And then we've got the approach and the back course option. The approach one is the one we're going to use during our landing phase, or approach phase. That will try to capture the glide scope. And the back course is the back course, right? So if the, let's say, beacon is behind or on the other end of the runway, you need to use the back course mode. I'll probably record a video about that soon, because got some questions about that recently. So as you can see, the aircraft is still in the air. Here's the airport. No icing, so that's good. So the de-icing really helped. No icing on the engines. Cool. So let's open the map. And you see that it will start moving here, and then we'll start to moving or to make a large turn, and then it will end up something like on CL13, and that's where we're also going to activate the approach, because then we'll hopefully do everything we want to do. Keep in mind that normally you are preparing for this, right? So you're preparing for this, so you're looking at the maps available for the airport, right? For example, yeah, you've got the one from Jasmussen. There are multiple other sources. Sky Vector also contains some maps which show you the approach routes which are available for the airports. And based on that you can make, I would say, a decision how you want to approach it. In the meantime, we're gonna sit back and relax and just enjoy your flight. I'm gonna set the barometer correctly, or the altimeter. And the aircraft will soon start to make turns. And will also be seen, of course, on this piece. You can see that the engines are still happy. They're not, I would say, running too hard. The rest is, I would say, kind of cool. Everything is in the green or in the in most green part. So that's good enough. So we're clear to the runway, right? So we've got permission to land, which most important one, of course. Always ask for permission. Don't land unless it's an emergency landing. Probably you might want to do that. Although I think it's still required to announce it. In the meantime, we're gonna sit back and relax and enjoy the nice scenery of Iceland. And we're gonna wait till the aircraft will start to make a turn, which will be pretty soon. A few things we shouldn't forget, right? We shouldn't forget to drop the flaps, we shouldn't forget to drop the gears. All those things are really important. So here it goes. There's another airport there. Not sure which one this is. Let's have a look. It's BIRK. Also a pretty large airport, or at least has a professional runway. And distance is 1.2 miles to the next waypoint, right? So coming close. We'll make some I would say deeper or wider turn, I should say. And then we're gonna try to make a successful landing, of course. So the question is, when do you need to activate the approach? The approach mode we activated at the C13 because then it's a straight line. Because as soon as you activate the approach, it will move from GPS to VOR1 in most cases. In some cases also does it automatically for you, but keep that in mind that you need to do that. If for some reason you hit the approach mode and it doesn't activate VOR1, use the CDI button to switch it, because if VOR1 is not, I would say, selected, it will have an effect on the say approach functionality of the autopilot. You can see it's getting already a little bit dark. So let's have a look at the lights, which we can find here, if I'm correct. Or are they? Come on. I just saw them. Are they on the roof? No. Not here, of course. Here they are. So landing lights are still switched on, only the taxi lights are switched off, so I would say we're good to go. So we've got all the lights on which we need to use during the landing. As you can see, we're using VFR, right? So we're not using any flight plan or official flight plan because we didn't file it with the authorities. And then we're gonna sit back and relax and simply wait till we're there. So one thing about this de-icing stuff, right? If you hit it, or if you are flying in very cold situations, you can use the de-ice functionality. And the de-ice functionality of this aircraft has a few options. For example, you can activate the windshield de-icing pump for 5 seconds. There's this one which already warns you if something is wrong, right? You can either set it to an ice light, or you can set it to N and test. We can switch it to off, which is not recommended. There's 2 pumps. In case one pump freezes, you can still move to the other one. And the way the pumps are working, by default they're off. You can set them to normal, but you can also set them to high, which I would say in that case they simply start to work harder. Keep in mind that both the windshield, which is only activated for 5 seconds, and the activate max mode of the de-ice for 2 minutes are time bound, right? So this one 15 seconds, this one for 2 minutes, and in that case you need to, let's say, increase the main de-ice pump to high, else it won't work correctly. What happens if you don't do that in these cold periods here in Iceland? Well, your aircraft will start to act very weird, so you will see that this speedometer will start to freeze. Your aircraft starts to suddenly beep because it thinks it's on a much lower or higher altitude than it is, and eventually you will crash. Because if we now would look at the left side and right side, you can see that the I would say that the wings and the engines are not frozen. But if you forgot to do that, and that's what I did initially, then your engines will freeze and your I would say wings will start simply not work, which means that the, let's say, moving parts will simply not work correctly, and then you're screwed. So in the meantime, we're gonna look at the screen here. We can change the range, of course, if we want. Other way around. Always doing that in videos. So we're closely to CL13, and we can see the lights of the airport already here, right? So of the runway, so that's good. So at least we're gonna go into the correct direction. That's always nice. And once we're aligned, so once we're at CL13, we're gonna activate the approach mode, which we again can find here. In the meantime, we're also gonna, let's say, decrease speed a bit, drop flaps. Gonna start for the landing phase. Make sure that you're not going too slow, because that's also not what we want, of course. You can see that the aircraft will simply turn and do its things. Gonna do the gears down, just to ensure that we're not forgetting it at the last piece. Drop flaps another knob. And in the meantime, we're making some progress. So almost at CL13, as you can see also here, 0.7 miles. And that's all fine. So now we're going to activate the approach, and what you will see is that now there comes another letter, or 2 letters actually, which say GS, which stands for glide scope. And once it captures the glide scope, these letters will turn into green. Keep in mind that you need to be tuned into the radio, and it looks like they didn't tune into the radio yet, or not correctly, because if it would have been, then we would see this one being shown correctly. So is there an option that did it incorrectly? Yes, there always is. So you can always check the other ways to figure out what's going on. Based on this, I would say the approach mode will probably not work, since we didn't, or since we're not using the ILS mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to decrease speed a bit. In the meantime, we're also going to decrease the altitude a bit. this case you can see even that it goes pretty weird, because if we would go this direction we would probably land off another one or land on a different runway. Now I picked it up. As you see, sometimes you need to wait a bit. So GS is now activated, and you can see it activated it on VOR2. So that's cool. So we're gonna decrease it, and what you will see is that it will start to descend automatically. So we're gonna drop the flaps even further, because we're coming very close to it. It's pretty hard to see, but we're going pretty close to the airport. Can use this map, of course, on the this side, and then we can zoom in. Whoop. Now it really picked up the glide scope, but now it's gonna do weird things. So what we need to do is we need to make a corrective action, because you can see that it will suddenly pull down the aircraft completely, and that's of course not what we want. So let's increase speed a bit. And let's see if it works. So always keep your hand at the stick, even if it's on autopilot, because you just have seen that the aircraft still could decide to do weird things. And drop flaps even further. Look from behind. There's the airport. But as you can see, it's already, you'd say, coming pretty closely down. It's going with 250 feet per minute. So I'm really wondering what it will do, because as you can see, this is where the map stops. Looks like it's gonna increase altitude again. So let's go outside. This is really exciting. Ignore the beeping, because we're going too low. Let me increase speed again, because I think it has to do with the speed we're going. Yes. Simply didn't pay enough attention to it, as you could see. Because we still needed to fly a bit. As you can see, also the poppy light here, which can be seen here, also completely red. So we're now coming into, I would say, a better position. So now we're on the correct glide path, so now we can safely decrease speed. Take a hand on the stick. Gonna deactivate the autopilot now. You will see that it will start to red blink. Not too bad, I would say. So we landed successfully on Reykjavik Airport. In this video we discussed the multiple options of the autopilot, which were a lot, as you could see. Hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you've got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below the video. And if you want to stay up to date about my videos, then consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Diamond X-ray Golf, Sierra contact ground on 118.0.